All right. Hello, everybody. And welcome to the Ops Manager and the Lawyer podcast. I am Tawana TJ Everhart, the Ops Manager.
And I'm Tanya Floyd Chambers, the lawyer.
And we are helping you to learn the laws at work so you won't make mistakes at work because mistakes cost too
Much
much
money.
money. Yeah,
Yes.
too much money. So, this episode is sponsored by Capture It Training Solutions, your premier workplace training company, helping employers capture and correct workplace issues before you get captured into legal trouble, which is not good.
Absolutely.
You don't want that. You don't want that. Facilitated by experts in the field of employment law and management, you can attend virtual live trainings, on demand trainings, or customized trainings for your company. Our goal is to help you be on the offense instead of the defense with legal issues. You can find more information by visiting us at www.capturit.com, and that is capture it, KAPCHURIT.com, to sign up for on demand courses or register for upcoming live trainings. This episode is also sponsored by TJ Everhart Consulting, where we help organizations build unstoppable leaders, unstoppable teams, and unstoppable employees by helping you strategize, analyze, and give you training. You can reach out to us at www.tjeverhart.com. We always say that we would like for you to like, share, leave a review. Go to our YouTube channel. You can find our YouTube channel at TJ Everhart, or you can find us at Capture It on YouTube. We want you to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Go anywhere that you listen to podcasts, you will be able to find us. So, we are here today. Tanya and I are both super excited
Yes.
about our guests with us today. So, Tanya, who do we have with us today?
Well, we have the beautiful Miss LaToya Lowe representing us from an organization everyone really should know, the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which was established in the
Oh,
1960s following the 1964 Civil Rights Act. So, greetings, LaToya. How are you?
I'm good. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here.
thank you so much, Latoya, for being with us. Girl, we so happy to have you because
You
see,
just
people
don't
don't
know.
be understanding. So first, Latoya. So where are you located?
I am located in Birmingham, Alabama. That is where my district office is. But in Alabama, I actually service the Panhandle of Florida and the entire state of Mississippi. So that would cover our entire district.
Okay, okay. All right. So the last couple of podcasts. So, okay, for those of you that are new to joining us, so Tanya and I with Capture It, our goal is to give you the tips and the tools to help you deal with employee issues on
Mhm.
the manager side to the lawyer. Because, see,
Yes.
most of the time, most of the issues that the EEOC, which we will talk to Latoya about what she does, it could have been fixed or probably
Mhm.
couldn't have been an issue that she even had to see
Could have been
had the
prevented.
leaders, yeah, absolutely, had the leaders been trained. So we give you the tools and the things that we've learned in our years of being in the field. For me as an ops manager for several Fortune 500 companies, and then Tanya being an employment attorney, not she don't know anything about how to get your cousin out of jail, but she know all the stuff about
Absolutely.
about the employment law. So there's a
Absolutely.
difference.
Hmm.
Okay, so the EEOC though. So Latoya, can you explain to our audience what does the EEOC do? Why is it important that they know about you guys?
Hmm.
It's important. The EEOC was founded off the Civil Rights Act of 1965. And the EOC is here for every employer and even employees. And it is just to protect your rights on the job. We're important because to me, we are out here, we're trying to eradicate discrimination in the workplace. and you would be so surprised as to what types of discrimination takes place in the workplace. So you have race, you have gender, you have sex, sexual orientation, you have gender, national origin, and even age and disabilities. So those are the laws that we protect you all from. So we get employees that come to us with complaints. They come in, we investigate them, and then we go to the bat to try to eradicate the discrimination in the workplace.
Yes.
So one of the issues that has been a hot topic, a hot button, we've talked 2 podcasts about, and it's all over the news. So LaToya, I'm sure you're going to help us understand this mandated vaccination. And some people feel like, you know, how can they tell me that I have to get vaccinated? Or what are my rights if I don't want to be vaccinated? Because on the news, there's people walking out of their jobs.
Right. And even as you go into this, can you share with our audience what you do now with the EEOC and your previous role, which I think both play a big part in what we're talking about tonight?
Yeah, in my previous role, I was an investigator. So I used to investigate employment discrimination. So that was my full-time job, looking at all sorts of cases, all different types of cases, you know, and fighting, you know, for the little guys, the people that are harmed on their jobs. And then I transitioned over to management. So now I'm a director over our resource management. And so I do a little bit of everything else now. But in this role, I still see a lot of things as far as adverse actions take place in employment. I'm also over all of our HR. So I'm dealing with all the things that are happening with COVID or any type of reasonable accommodations, things like that that come into our office. Being in that management role now, I'm getting to see a whole nother side of employment there.
Right. And so with your role with the EEOC and all that you're seeing, because you mentioned COVID, would you say that is one of the hot button issues, if not the number one hot button issue right now?
It is. And for those of you who haven't taken the time out or you're really curious, you can definitely go to our website at www.eeoc.gov. So a lot of the information is on there, and you're going to see a big, huge data load of information about COVID, COVID-19, and vaccination process. So what we are getting is an influx of information across the United States from employees, from employers, asking questions about COVID, vaccinations, and the mandate. It is a really big deal, and it's something that we're still working the kinks out in. If you will see that we have some guidance out there, we're doing our best with the guidance, giving it to employees and employers. But all in all, we still want employees to be protected, and we want to preserve your rights in the workplace. So that's the most important thing, that we're still looking at that, and that is still our main goal.
Okay, so the mandate that's out now, can you explain what that mandate means? The latest mandate that has been placed out. Can you explain what that means to the federal employees and to the private sector? What is that mandate? And
so the latest mandate came out when President Biden did an executive order, and his mandate, he ordered all federal employees that have to be vaccinated by November 22nd, actually, of this month, which actually by now you would have needed to almost have gotten your first shot, because November the 8th is the last date you have to get your second shot, because you have to be fully vaccinated, meaning 14 days after you get your second shot by November the 22nd. So that mandate went out to all federal employees. And as you know, the federal sector is really big. This includes all DOD installations. So when you're talking about DOD, you're thinking all Army, all Navy, all Coast Guards, all Marines. Plus, you have all Department of Army civilians. DOD is the biggest employer in the United States. So that's a lot of people that are pushing to get vaccinated, and it's being mandated that we will have to. Then you have all your other private, smaller well, I say smaller agencies like Social Security, you have VA, you have EEOC, like this, my agency, the IRS, all those are federal jobs as well. And they're mandated as well in order to have to get this vaccination. So we don't really have a choice. Well, we do have a choice, but we can talk about our choice a little bit later. And then the difference with the private sector is it's not truly mandated for the private sector. I know employers are mandating it, especially in the healthcare field. I've noticed that in your schools, you've seen it where you have a lot of high traffic, where you're involved with people from day to day. You're bumping into people and working with a lot of people every day. You see a lot of those employers are mandating it at their level, but it's a mandate, but it's not really a mandate because they actually have a choice. They can kind of fight back as well. And so we'll discuss that, a little bit later about how do you preserve your right if you don't want to get the COVID vaccine, or what reasons are you looking at as to why you won't get the vaccine and you want to tell your employer that.
Mm-hmm. And so everybody can understand. And so if you work for the government, as the old folks used to say, you have one of those good government jobs.
Yeah, one of them good government with the good government benefits.
If you work for the government, especially the biggest employer in the country, the federal government. So President Biden has issued this, and you just told us something, because I stay up on my politics. So you have to be fully vaccinated really by November the 8th, because by the 22nd, you have to show that you've been 14 days. So if Lisa waits till November 21st to get her first shot, and she has one of those good government jobs, Lisa might have a problem. That's what
and lose her good government benefits, girl.
And so this is for everybody who works for the federal government, which is of course the largest employer in the country. And then you brought up something interesting, because you have your public sector jobs, which are government jobs, and then your private sector. And so you brought up a good point that in the private sector, there really is not a federal law that you have to be vaccinated, but employers are issuing these mandates as part of their policies. And what has the EEOC said about that and the legality of it with the employers?
Well, the EEOC hasn't said much about it because there is no law yet. So, of course, we all know there's a difference in an executive order and then the law. So really, in order for EEOC to kind of step in, there would have to be, a law about COVID-19 vaccination, So that would have to go all the way through Congress and all the steps to become a law. But since it's not, we're still doing our best to reach out. But in private sector employees, employers have the right to actually mandate that right now. And they can actually, let employees go, fire them, and if those employees don't comply. And we have seen some of this, especially in the medical field. It's been our biggest field so far.
And that's where I was going with it. It's not so much that what the EEOC, it's more so that the EEOC has said that it's legal for employers to issue these mandates.
It's legal. It's definitely legal.
And is there a backing behind that? Is there a reason why the EEOC has agreed that this is legal, although there's no law related to it? LaToya, do you know? Like, was there any thoughts around it?
I don't have a backing. I think there was some thought that's gone into it. I think because we don't have case law. I think because it's new. So when you're dealing with something that's brand new, a lot of our laws and things that we work off of, we have years and years of case law to go back and to look at. But this is new because it's new for all of us across the board. I think that we're just treading, lightly with it. We're just kind of walking, I would say the dog with it, and just, things are ever changing. So while we're saying one thing now, we could be saying something else 6 months from now because it's so fluid.
Yeah, I know also too, one of the things I know the EEOC has looked at is the case law behind the flu shots and all of the other different shots that we have to take for work and for schools. And right now, I believe they haven't set COVID apart from flu shots and the other types of vaccine shots, like TJ that you and I were talking about earlier. And so we just said they just haven't set that apart. It's just another shot that an employer can require, or an educational institution.
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely, and we see it all the time. I would say, because I also am a DoD employee as well, because I'm in the Army Reserves, and the flu shot is mandatory for us every year. It's been mandatory for years. We have mandatory vaccinations like typhoid and tetanus shots, things we have to get. We don't have a say so in it. It's been mandated for us for years. Where there are ways, like I say, to get around it with accommodations and things like that. But for the most part, each year we're required to get the flu shot. I have my voucher to go to Walgreens right now, sitting on my dresser, saying, "Hey, as a reminder, go by Walgreens to get your flu shot." I mean, we have a deadline every year for it.
That's interesting that you say that, LaToya, because I've had this conversation a couple of times. I don't know why people are acting like this is new. Like this is the first administration to ever mandate a vaccination, when I know as a parent, I couldn't register my kids for school without a blue form. And the blue form said that they had been vaccinated. Even when my kids went to college, they had to have the blue form, and my children are in their 20s. So it's amazing to me how this has been seen as something new this administration has done, and now it's turned into all of this conspiracy theories, and it's a new religion, and they just trying to make us bow down and all this kind of crazy. And so we know that mandated vaccines have gone all the way back to the 1800s. So
Absolutely.
and like you just said, the military, and even if you go to other countries, like my sister has had to go to India, and she's had to have several shots before she could even go to visit. So I'm not understanding the conversation.
And like I was saying, if anybody wants to go to the motherland, to Africa, my understanding is that there are a number of shots that you have to take. And so now, one of the things that we talked about before, and they heard from it from my perspective as an attorney, but it would be great to hear from your perspective with the EEOC. What if somebody says, and we heard it, well, my spirit just is not sitting right with me. I'm gonna get a note from Pastor about this shot, amen, and bring it to work. Now, how does that work?
Well, like I said, employees do have rights. If you believe, if you're faith-based and your faith-based belief is against being vaccinated, then there is a such thing, like we said, called a reasonable accommodation. And you can't ask for a religious accommodation is what it is. So employees can ask for that. They can actually write a letter to get something from their pastor that states and says these things about their faith, and they don't trust in vaccines or the science of vaccines, and it's against their faith. And maybe they pray about illnesses and sicknesses, and they don't particularly take medication or prevention of types of diseases and viruses. And then they can submit that to the employer. And when they submit it to the employer, then the employer would then, review it, look over it, take part in the interactive process with the employee, and try to find a reasonable accommodation for the employee. Now, meaning reasonable, it's not going to probably be what the employee wants, because you still have to be able to do, like I said, the essential functions of your job with that reasonable accommodation. So you're asking to not be vaccinated, but how do you pose being able to do your job? That's when the employee is going to have to be able to come to the table with some ideas and some of sort like that, in order to figure out how they're still going to do their job to keep their job.
Yes.
So, right, like I'm reading just recently about Kyrie Irving, and we know that that's a person that's out there. So Kyrie is refusing to take the vaccine. I think all three of us are of the position that people have a choice. You absolutely have the right to refuse to take the vaccine. I do think it's crazy when we go and harp on people that choose not to do it. For whatever their reasoning is, they have a right to choose not to do it. So with Kyrie though, his check real long. His
Long,
money real long.
Yes,
His
long.
accounts real
absolutely.
long. So Kyrie can afford to say, well, I won't play because there obviously isn't an accommodation for him. So he's going to go to the house.
Hmm.
Some of you, some people are going to go to the house and call the EEOC and say that they're
Hmm.
being discriminated against.
Well,
Absolutely.
at
And
first
so,
they'll probably call the lawyer
or they're
first.
going to call the lawyer. Yeah,
I
they're going to
mean,
call the
you know.
lawyer and say
Hmm.
that they are discriminated against, their
Hmm.
rights, their
Hmm.
religious accommodation, or they weren't given a religious accommodation or religious exception, is what I've
Right.
heard people say. He asked for a religious exception and wasn't given it. So then they're
Hmm.
going to call Tanya.
Yes.
Hmm.
And Tanya, you're going to say,
Well, if they call me, I'm going to say to them the same thing that LaToya would say to them. First, find out. Now, there's a couple of things. Even if an employer thinks, and would you agree with this, LaToya? Even if the employer thinks it's ridiculous, they still have to engage in that interactive process. So if
Yes.
somebody calls me and says, I have a religious exception or health exception, but my employer told me to get somewhere and sit down, I'm going to take their call and I'm going to
Hmm.
sit up and listen. But if they say my employer, and after I ask them questions, if they thoroughly engaged in interactive process, they just didn't like the outcome, that's that's different. And
yeah,
so, LaToya, could you speak to that? The difference between an employer telling
Yes.
an employee shoe fly, go away,
Hmm.
versus at least engaging in the interactive process.
Hmm.
and before Latoya, before you speak on that, see
Hmm.
that goes back to when we talk about those
Mhm.
conversations with the managers,
Hmm.
managers, and let me just speak on because Tanya just spoke on her part, but we all hear that it starts with the leader, that the
Hmm.
person that came to their manager and they said because you should be the first person to
Mhm.
go that they should go to. So this is why it is very important that managers that you know this type of information
Mhm.
because you could say shoot fly go into your go you'll be all right. You've been taking vaccines, honey. I know your child took the flu shot, your dad took the baby. You be going every month to get that flu shot, baby. Now you gonna talk about, see, you could be talking like that
Mhm.
Hmm.
and you've already messed up
Yes.
instead of not judging what you think they should or should not do.
Mhm.
So, from the perspective of the manager, this is how a lot of stuff end up with Tanya, end up with
With
it
lawyers.
ending
Yes.
with Latoya, because
Mhm.
managers are not knowledgeable enough to know how
Mhm.
to handle this situation. So, to all my managers that are listening, I hope that you are gaining something from this because it starts with you. So,
Mhm.
Latoya and Tanya both have said the first thing you need to do as a manager is to at least have the talk and the conversation with them.
Hmm.
Don't judge what you think it should or should not be.
Mhm.
You may know that they just went through and got the flu shot last month. That is not part of the conversation that you should even
Mhm.
have with them. You
Hmm.
should sit back and talk, okay, what can I do? What is there anything that we can do to accommodate and go and partner with your HR department? But
Yeah.
what's happening a lot of times, the mistakes are made before it even gets to HR. And that's just this situation. We can have Latoya come back and talk about all the other things, but most
Hello.
of the time, the problem starts with the leaders. Leaders are not knowledgeable enough to know how to handle these situations.
Mhm.
So, to my managers, you have an employee, they're saying to you, and let's just say you are one of those people, you are pro-vaccine, so you don't understand why they should, everybody
Mhm.
should be getting the vaccination and
Mhm.
all this foolishness that's been going on. You just listen to the foolishness. Don't have that conversation. That's not for you to
Absolutely.
judge it. It's
Mhm.
not, you are the gatekeeper leader to the organization. It is your responsibility to make sure the organization does the things that they should be doing the correct way. So don't
Mhm.
get involved in the conversation of whether they should or they should not.
Mhm.
Have the conversation about, okay, let's talk about, and is there anything that I can do?
Absolutely.
Take it to your HR person. Hopefully, you guys can resolve something, but a lot of times we can't. And I'm going to tell you, Latoya, you've been on the side of an employee, but you're also on the side of the leader. And employees, We don't want to lose employees. It costs us too much money to replace you. We want you to stay, but sometimes we can't accommodate what you're asking for. So the company may not have the ability to accommodate you. So you're going to go call Tanya. Okay. Now,
And then LaToya. And so, because TJ brought up several good points. And so, what would you say, both as a leader now with the EEOC and having been an investigator, would you say that you saw whether it's looking at a reasonable accommodation for the vaccine or a reasonable accommodation for some other religious belief or disability? Or in your findings, did you find that it was just a lot of managers that just did not have the knowledge? Whose fault is this? Is it lack of training?
Well, what we're finding, is basically just like Tanya said, is there's just a lack of knowledge out there for our managers. And it's the frontline managers, as I've said, it's never all the way at the top. Guess what? The top tier managers are consistently trained on ethics, on EO complaints, on accommodations, but somehow that top down, it doesn't happen sometimes in most organizations, and it's not getting to those frontline managers. And those are the people that are managing your employees, that are making the complaints. So we found that's one of the biggest problems. But with Tanya, she's kind of spot on with saying that, yes, we have to do a better job with spreading the news. And we do not get the right to make the choice based on our own personal beliefs. Just because we're vindicated and we have these beliefs personally about the vaccine, we cannot push that on other people. We have to still remember employees have rights. So when employees bring you in a problem about the COVID, they're saying, and they're citing different things, why they cannot get the vaccine, why they won't get the vaccine, we have to listen. We have to take it serious. And then if you're uncomfortable with that, I believe as a manager, what your thing you should do is pass it on off to HR. If you believe you cannot, participate in the interactive process with them, being non-biased, then the best thing to do is pass it off to HR and then let HR work with the employee in order to figure out an accommodation for them. Because we want everyone rights to be, like I say, to be preserved. And for employees to feel like they have a right and a say so. Sometimes we don't know. You could have just taken the flu vaccine 2 months ago. But who's to say that you've had some type of new disability that you just learned about? Maybe your immune system is compromised all of a sudden. Maybe you just found out you have lupus or sickle cell. So an employee doesn't have to divulge their medical information to the supervisor. Now, they do have to divulge it to whoever's over reasonable accommodations and things of that sort in order to make an accommodation for them. But the supervisor may not know. So before you go and you start saying, well, they did this and this and that, you never know what life-changing medical issues have happened with that employee in that short time as to why they're choosing maybe to not get the vaccine right now because they have a compromised immune system, some things of that sort that they don't want to deal with. So we just have to be open, vigilant, keeping our eyes and ears open and making sure that we're doing our due diligence as far as trying to find an accommodation for the employee.
Yes. And would you say also to that, because sometimes, and I've seen this on the legal side, sometimes HR does not do what they're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. So managers have to protect themselves as well. Like if they turn something over to HR, and if HR isn't right, because we all know there's some HR managers that do not have, I guess, the backbone to go up against the leadership or even the knowledge and the training themselves. And for the frontline managers, would you say too that they need to keep a record and protect themselves if they did the right thing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. As a supervisor and the manager, when you pass something on to HR, you make sure you have a record of it via email. You want to make sure you have a record of that. I sent this to you. I'm sending this to you. I'm going to scan this information over to you. Of course, if you're sending documentation like that, I would always say protect, do a confidential only or encrypted type email. You're going to pass on any medical information if an employee does provide that to you. Not that you ask for it, they give it to you. You have it now. You want to make sure you're protecting yourself. And so that way you're doing your part, because this is the thing about EEOC and complaints. All the employee has to say is they told the supervisor. It's not going to be HR. The supervisor, their first line leader, is the person who's responsible ultimately. So if they
Ooh,
tell
Latoya, wait a
us,
minute, girl. Wait. Because you talking my stuff, which is the reason why we have Capture It Training Solutions.
Yes.
I'm going to say it, and you just said it, and I'm going to say it 1,000 times. And I know what you're talking about is true because
Yes.
I was an ops manager, a manager over managers. The frontline leaders don't know employment laws. They don't know. They rely on HR. By the time it gets to HR, they have already messed up. It's already messed up because they didn't know that they needed to know the information, because most companies say refer them over to HR. As soon as an employee has an issue, it's refer them to HR. But you already, this person that called out 14 days and you hadn't asked them about FMLA and offered FMLA. This person that told you that their husband is sick. They've been with the company, they qualify. You haven't given them anything. No options, because you didn't know that you needed to give them the options. So they done told you that their husband in the hospital, been in the hospital a whole month, and you want to ask them, well, you coming in tomorrow? And you not one time even saw that they qualified for FMLA and offered it. And I'm not telling you, I'm not telling you what I heard. I'm telling you what I know.
I've had numerous cases with things like that. And when you talk about that first line supervisor, it is I've often said, and and I talk to my boss about it sometimes. I tell him that you find in companies we often promote based off people's technical skills and performance and their ability to do that job. However, we do not look at their interpersonal skills. We don't look at their management or leadership skills. We base it off of they can do this job, but can they work with people? Are they willing to learn to work with people? Are they teachable? Can they actually lead people? Do they have the right type of personality? Do they lack emotional intelligence? Do we need some training for them? It's all these things that should wrap up in picking a manager to lead people than just the technical part. And I tell people that's the bottom of the barrel, that you can do the doggone job. But can you actually lead other people? And that's where we're failing at. And that's where I say companies are failing at. And that's, like you said, that's where you guys come in at. We're giving training, with assisting, and with helping people in this area, because those frontline leaders, they lack it, they need it. And if they get what they need, like I say, companies could save millions of dollars instead of paying out all their money. They're paying out every year in discrimination claims.
And you brought up a good point too. What were you gonna say, TJ?
That's what I'm saying. That's a part of our tagline. We helping you to learn so you won't get caught up in this, captured into legal trouble, when a lot of it could have been prevented. And I'm going to also say, we have a comment that says, say it again for the managers in the back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Debbie, we're going to say it again for the managers in the back, but let me add this little plug to it. It is also companies, not enough for you to train your managers and check off the checklist that they were trained. If you don't have any form of accountability, follow up, hold people accountable to what they know. So if you have a manager that has gone through FMLA training, okay, check the box, they did it. But then you don't have any follow-up to make sure that you have to inspect what you expect. And that's something that I always told my managers. Inspect what you expect. We don't inspect. We just tell people what they need to do, and we don't put anything in place to go back to ensure that what they know they are doing, and that they're held accountable to what they know. Because I bet you most companies will say, our managers have been trained on FMLA, our managers been trained on sexual harassment, our managers been trained on workplace, of course.
Our managers have been trained on the interactive process. And you ask the interactive process of what, and they can't tell you. They've gone through the training, and that is part of the problem. It's not just the managers. I've found it with HR too, because companies will say, oh, like you said, LaToya, oh, so-and-so was good at this. We're going to put you over HR. We're going to put you over management. And at the end of the day, nobody really is happy, I'm telling you, but the plaintiff's attorneys.
Yeah, you guys said thank you, huh?
Yeah, or defense counsel. or that's who's happy, because either way, the lawyers are going to have to get involved. And so the lack of training, lack of training. Don't let me go there to people perish because of a lack of knowledge. Don't let me get to preaching, because that is a problem. It's the lack of training. And we're talking about the interactive process and engagement dealing with COVID, this pandemic, like nothing we have ever seen in our lifetimes, for sure. And the lack of training that's gone into this, even with the reasonable accommodation steps. And right. And so I know that for sure, and especially in the region that you are over too, LaToya, would you say that you've seen this over and over again?
I've seen it, and it's just even thinking about, like I say, even in my own employer, it's there. I'm currently managing, some accommodation requests right now. So we have two types. Either you have a religious accommodation, or you are seeking a medical accommodation. But I have employees that are federal employees that are seeking accommodations for various reasons, being one of the two, because they have that right. And when we get those requests, we take them seriously, push them up to our disability manager, and then we're going to start the interactive process. And we're going to see what we can do, how we can accommodate this employee that doesn't want to get a vaccine. Right now is not as difficult because we're still working from home. So we're not in the office. However, if we were in the office, it would be a little more difficult, because then we may require, hey, you don't want to get the vaccine, but we're going to require you to test twice a week at your own expense. So that's giving them an accommodation. It may not be what they wanted, but that's allowing us to make sure this employee is tested twice a week. We get a negative test, but it's inconveniencing the employee. And so it's not that we want to keep doing that in order to force someone to get a vaccine. I don't want people to believe or think that. But we do want to keep the workplace safe. And it's not just for that one employee, but for the rest of the employees. If you have 95% of your workforce vaccinated and just a few that are not, you still want to protect those that are vaccinated from the people that are not vaccinated. And that's all that we're trying to do. And that may cause some inconvenience, but it's a reasonable accommodation. Maybe not what the employee wants, because they may say, well, I can just work from home all the time. No. We may not do that.
Not if you work at a hospital, for instance.
Not if you work at a hospital. Like I said, nurses, you can't do that. You have to be on the floor. You're interacting with patients all day, every day. How do we give you an accommodation other than maybe make you take a test 3 times a week? But we can't say just go home. You can't do it if you're the phlebotomist. You have to actually walk up and go to patients. You're really in close contact with patients every day as a phlebotomist, and different people from all walks of life. But if you say you don't want to get the vaccine, we have to look at accommodations that may suit you and fit you, but it may not be something you like, and it may inconvenience the employee.
So we have a comment, just going back to Tara. Thank you for commenting. She says you're setting yourself up for trouble with no follow through. When I talked about, it's enough. We train, and most companies we talk to a lot of, we've trained our people on this. Our people are really good with this. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then when I ask them individually, I can say, what's the time frame for FMLA if a person is sick? Most of them don't even know what I'm talking about. And these are the people that talk the most to the employees. The employees are calling their managers. And as you just said, the supervisor, the team lead, you are a leader. So they need to know what to do when they're in the place of the leader. Yeah. But that's why we have Capture It Training Solutions. Really, our goal is to, again, help you be on the offense, not on the defense. If you get to LaToya, it's so much cheaper to call me and Tanya. It's so much cheaper to call.
It's cheaper to call us through Capture It than to call me for representation.
Yes.
What you say? Cheaper for you to train them than you have to represent, or somebody has to defend their company against you being a plaintiff's attorney.
Absolutely. Or a company calling me to represent. I on both ends, plaintiffs and on the defendant's end. I've seen it both
Mhm.
ends and experience on both ends. And so many things can be prevented, just like
Mhm.
you said, and it's knowledge on both ends. And something that you pointed out, I always say, LaToya, people have to understand there are, for instance, there's some jobs for which there is no accommodation
Yes.
at at all. There's some jobs, but for an employer not to engage in the interactive process is number one. And then for
Mhm.
the employee, like you said, to just expect to just say, oh, okay, here's my note from my pastor, or here's my note from my doctor. I can't get the shots. I'm going about my business. Both sides have to know they're going to have to give up something. When you
Yes.
say, LaToya, employers and employees,
Yep.
comes to the interactive process and reasonable
Mhm.
accommodations.
Oh, I know. I just thought about something, LaToya.
What?
Girl, do you know the governor of Texas said he's making
Oh,
it
yes.
against the law for
Mhm.
companies to mandate the
Mhm.
vaccine? So for
Mhm.
any of y'all, so I'm in Alabama. So y'all think y'all gonna call Kay Ivy and tell Kay she could just tell these companies that she can make it against the law. LaToya, what's that about? Um, the
I was looked it up earlier too, and I saw that, and it's strange enough because what I'll tell anybody is, even though we have an executive order right now, we really should be pushing Congress to make something so it can be into law, because then all federal law would trump any state laws at that point. But when you look at the state, he can put it out for the state. He can say, hey, this is what I'm going to do for my state. If he gets enough votes, in their legislature and they sign off on it, he can. I think if he did, he's going to have a fight on his hand, because I think you're going to have a whole lot of employers that are going to sue you. They're going to sue the state for their rights, absolutely, to protect their employees. Because, like I keep saying, when you look at schools and you look at hospitals, and you look at places where people are very populated and you work very closely with people, nursing homes, to where you have to touch people and be very close to people, you want to protect those employees. And you want to protect those patients as well, the people that are actually there for getting help, medical assistance, getting taught in school, those sorts of things. And so I think he's going to have a legal battle on his hand if he did push for that and it did happen. Who knows about the state of Texas? They do some strange, weird things over there, and they seem to get those things passed over there.
yeah.
It's unbelievable what they've done in the last couple of months.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, but people also have to understand, because you brought up a good point. And as I was saying when we were talking earlier offline, most people slept through ninth grade civics, it seems like. And so people have to understand that, first of all, he only did that for political reasons. And some of the bigger employers in Texas already said they're ignoring that foolishness. Because just like with the president, with the federal government employees, that really would apply, of course, to the state government employees, because there are no laws
Yep.
surrounding the vaccine. And
Yeah.
so from federal or state level. And so if Congress really did want to push it and accelerate it, if it became law across the land, of course, a federal law, then there would be a totally different issue at
Yeah.
hand. But so employers in Texas still have to understand, if an employer still wants to have a mandate for their job, for the private sector, if an employee still want to come
Yeah.
forward, they can't just say, well, the governor says I don't have to. Right.
Absolutely.
Yes. And that's what in Texas people have to understand. And once again,
Absolutely. And
yes.
those employers can still let you go,
Right.
because
Mm.
we're private sector. We can still let you go. I know the governor told you didn't have to do it, and you said you're not going to do it. And then this is because there's no, that those laws they don't represent the company policy. If the company policy is this, then we have to let you go. So you may not have a job if you want to go down that road.
So you be knocking on the governor's door,
Mhm.
you hiring?
And
Uh,
his money,
Get a
he
job.
gonna be like, no, I
hello?
don't have that for you. I'm sorry.
Absolutely, because they're playing political football. And once again,
Absolutely.
people not having knowledge
Knowledge.
Right.
Well,
And that's
this is what I keep saying about that. We're and it's not that I'm not making a big deal about COVID. I have my own personal, opinions about the vaccine and things of that nature, and I have a variety of people that I've come in contact with, from old to young. But
we
this
have to.
controversy is just not new in America. I looked up when we started this stuff about vaccines about 5 or 6 months ago. And if you look back, they did sort of the same things about seatbelts in your car. That they acted crazy. They protested. They wrote. They wanted to make laws about saying you can't tell me what to do with my own car that I pay for. I don't have to put that seatbelt on. I don't have to do this. They fought and fought and fought about the law for seatbelts. Guess what? We wear seatbelts every day now, don't we? We put them on automatically when we get in our cars as a safety precaution to protect ourselves, our little ones, our loved ones, or whatever passengers we have in the car with us. But it was a huge, big deal back then. Even the speed limit, if you go back and look, they protested speed limits on the street. But what happened? Laws were written saying, hey, for the safety of other people, we're going to say you can only drive this fast now. You can't just get on here and drive 95 and 100 miles an hour, because we have to look out for other people and the dangers that come with excessive speeds. So this down the line, 5-10 years from now, it's going to look totally different when we look at some of the biggest protests that America have had.
Yeah. Now, I think you're right. Now, I think the difference is back when they were protesting with the seat belts, you could protest and it would be in your circle. Now with social media, you can act a fool for the whole world. and
Absolutely.
That's part of the problem. Then you have some leaders who won't be named. Back with the seatbelt drama, it was just in your little world that you were acting a fool, and you were lucky if you made the news from acting a fool with your seatbelt protest. But now you just sit in front of your computer or your phone, and it can
say
go out
anything.
Go out to the whole world,
the entire world.
Right.
And quick too, and quick.
Right. Quick. When those same people telling you to go and do all this, they got their vaccine and probably have their job too.
Yes.
Well, LaToya, I know this has just been absolutely great. We appreciate you. I'm glad that we have this connection and this partnership. One thing Tanya and I say when we go out and train, we're not talking about something somebody told us. We go out to companies with experience behind us, combined about 40 years worth of experience in these areas. So this is just showing them that we don't just talk, we also go to people like you to make sure that what we're saying is true, that we're not just listening to what so and so said in the news or so and so. Everybody study for yourself. That's scripture. and seek out the knowledge. And when you come to us, and when we come to your organization, when we come to train, and when we go to our podcast, when you look us up, because we have some other stuff we talked about, LaToya, we have to bring you back and talk about some of the sexual harassment stuff that's been going on and what all that stuff looks like. But we base it on facts, and not just somebody gave us a book to learn information and go and train it. When you reach out to capture it, we are giving you the tips and the tools to transform, not just change, transform your environment. So you are another part of helping us transform organizations, build better organizations, build better leaders, and be on the offense
instead of the defense. And one of the things we pride ourselves on with our trainings, people will not go to sleep in our trainings.
Oh yeah, it's just like this. Yeah,
nor will they just say they're going to check a box. They will be changed and transformed through our trainings
and engaged for
and
sure.
Engaged, absolutely.
Our podcast is just a little short snippets of what our trainers are like.
Absolutely. But yes, the knowledge that you bring, and they see in real life professionals like you, and so they can see that the EEOC is real, because a lot of people don't think about the EEOC until
it's too late.
Something is happening.
Too late.
And TJ and I are all about the proactive instead of the reactive. So you've been a great part this evening, helping us to impart some knowledge. Absolutely.
Well, we
I
have
was
some comments that
honored,
said thank
ladies.
you all for great information. That's from Tara. So thank you, Tara. And we have Vicky. She said, great forum, ladies. So thank you so much, Vicky. And thank you, LaToya. Is there anything you want to say, LaToya, to close us out?
Just that I was honored to be here with this platform. I believe in what you ladies are doing. I believe in educating, everyone. In all forms, in all employees, private and federal sector, just on their rights in the workplace. It's important that we make sure people understand that when they're being discriminated against, that there are things out there to help them. And we want to help managers and employers prevent discrimination. That's our biggest thing. If we can prevent it, then we can save money, we can save dollars, and those things can be used to go back into incentives, even for employees sometimes. So for me, this was just a great forum. I was honored that you ladies asked me. I love teaching. I love giving information. I love when people learn.
Well,
That's why you open out our own heart, because we do too. We love teaching and love it when you said it best. We love it when people learn.
Learn.
Get it. That's one thing we have in common with grown folks. Grown folks have to work, and jobs are a big part of being a grown-up, an adult. And so learning as much as you can, while you can, you following those NBA players, because what you all, TJ, you and LaToya said, his money long.
Money long.
Now, why you lost your job following him? Absolutely. And your benefits.
Good government job and good government benefits. So we thank you all for tuning in. We thank you for your comments, guys. You can reach out to us at www.capturit.com. So it's KAPCHURIT.com. If you go to Capturit's website, you'll see our podcast and listen to our other episodes. Also, our courses that we currently have. We are also available to come to your organization, do customized training, kind of sit with you and see what your issues are, what do you think your issues are, and even we'll do assessments, because sometimes people think that they have an issue. For example, you may think that you have a discrimination issue with race, but you may have another type of issue. So give us a call. We'll definitely come in and do a needs assessment for you, and we would love to come in and help you change your organization. That is all that I have. We certainly appreciate you. Don't forget to go to follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, guys. Please share our information. We love what we do, but we want others to be transformed also. So please share, and thank you so much for listening and joining us tonight. Good night, everybody.
Good night, and thank you, LaToya. Thank you.
Thank you,
LaToya.
LaToya.
Everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.